All right. Thanks for joining me out here, Jaden.
Yeah, of course. I can't say I expected to be this high in a tree, but
Yeah.
you live
You
and you
only live
learn.
once, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But anyways, yeah, I basically thought this would be a good idea just because I was trying to think of like podcast niches, right? And I got really sad after the election and I thought there's too many lonely incel young men out there that are voting for Trump. Or mostly they're just too many bad role models. Or there's too many grifters and scammers that are trying to get people to buy into crypto or buy into their like Hustlers University, and they just kind of attract too much attention. And there are all alternatives, but I think the alternatives are all just a little bit either too old or they just don't speak the same language, or they're too like PC. They're not really that cool.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, my whole idea with this is that I told you about the depolarizing. I don't really see any big policy or even income difference to really be the big problem, although income inequality can lead to the polarization division. I think it's mostly like a communications problem, and I think it's mostly spurred on by just like the social media algorithms. So you see like the worst reflection of certain people, and then you extrapolate that to like every people,
yeah.
and then that just like really screws our communication over. So basically, that's why I named the podcast Tree Chop Treaties, because I think the niche is that only young cool guys like us can climb trees. There are no professors or there are no old guys climbing trees,
I couldn't
especially
see
in the
Elon
winter.
climbing this.
What?
I couldn't see Elon climbing
Yeah, I
this.
couldn't see Elon do this. I couldn't see Andrew do this.
Yeah.
Andrew's too busy with little kids. So yeah, that's the one niche. And then the other niche is who would have the gall to both climb the tree and then also have the gall or arrogance to think that they could like talk about something worthwhile.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's me.
You're the combination.
I have
of
some
both.
kind of combination of some kind of earned or unearned confidence and narcissism that makes me think I'd be worth listening to. Or maybe I don't really have the confidence. I'm more spurred on by the hatred of the people that are famous.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why is Aiden Ross famous, Jaden? I'm way smarter than him.
That's a good
I deserve way more than Aiden Ross.
Yeah.
And clearly all these guys, I don't think they ever make it without having absurd confidence and like work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not to take away those accomplishments from those guys. It's mostly like what they decide to do with them, right?
You have to have delusional confidence. I
Yeah.
feel like in any pursuit, to a point, like when you're a kid and you're starting to play basketball, you're 11 years old, for you to think that you're going to make it to the NBA when only 400 people make it to the
Yeah.
NBA.
A little bit of delusion is good, though. That's my philosophy. You got to have delusion, and then you got to have friends that are willing to tell you about your delusion, and then you can like balance it out. I
Like,
think
keep
that's
you
the
in
fun
check.
part. Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. But did you end up watching like the university video, or just like little clips, or?
Like the full, like your full last
Yeah.
one. Yeah, I watched it as I was making something,
Okay.
like making some toast. So I can't say I fully.
So did you hear it, or?
No, I was listening and watched. Like it was
Okay,
on
okay.
the iPad. Yeah.
All right. Can you tell me anything you took from that, or a little bit of a gist?
I think the point that stuck out to me the most, like when you were talking about speaking up in class and the kind of like environment that a university classroom brings today.
The
Like
chilling effect.
Yeah,
why
that's
we're
what you
out
were
there.
calling it.
Yeah.
But like that resonated a lot with me because although I'm not as into my program as I assume that you are, like my program for me is kind of just a branching thing to go to teachers college later. But within my classroom, when I'm wanting to speak up and like voice my opinion on something that might not like that everyone in the classroom might not agree with, I feel like I'm wasting the professor's time or I'm wasting like my students or my like peers' time. Like I don't want to waste the time of them. It just feels like very like the opposite of inclusive, the environment that is in like university classrooms today.
Yeah, it is funny. I think participation grades should be like more specific and just like way higher in general.
Yeah, yeah.
But I definitely get, especially just because think of our class sizes versus like some of our friends' classes, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
like 300 versus 30.
Yeah.
So if we're feeling that effect in a 30 size classroom, just imagine how
Yeah.
much more magnified the effect gets.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like, yeah, there is a certain amount of like you want to be respectful of your peers' time, but then like we always hear that thing from our professors. I'm pretty sure every professor says it. That's like, oh, like if you have a question, like someone else in the class probably has a question too, so like ask it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So but it's like, I don't know. I don't think that ever happens, or I don't think professors are good at encouraging dialogue. They either don't leave enough pauses for it, like they'll like fake pause, but it'll be like 3 seconds. Those pauses need to be at least like 5 to 7 to like get the awkwardness in.
Yeah, yeah.
But then also, I don't think people are really incentive. It's both. It's people are not given enough incentive, and then there are also just a lot of negative incentives because the topics we learn about in university are generally pretty complex, and it is scary to talk about it. But then also, even if you do, like there's not really enough incentive to go in depth or give like a contrary opinion, because we don't get graded based on whether or not our opinion is contrary most of the time.
Yeah.
It's just like 10%.
Yeah.
And like most people, it's just like you just get it for like attendance,
Yeah,
right?
showing up to class.
So
Yeah.
like I'd really like to see, and it depends on the class. Like you can't do it for, engineering or math necessarily, but like most of the humanities should have like 30-40% like oral exams.
Yeah.
Especially for small classes when the professor can like afford to take the time to do like a 5-minute sit down with you. And then just think of like how much good that does for like stopping cheating and like incentivizing like good studying.
Yeah.
And also just like being able to have the confidence to like sit down in front of the professor and then speak about it. But like I've spoken about this with some professors before, and like the reason they don't is because they say it takes too much time, which I just think is kind of like, it is kind of BS. Like I think with our small class sizes, I think they can afford to like take the time, or just I don't know, like negotiate so you can like bump the percentage grade up.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason that they can't take out 1 or 2 other assignments and then just do a good 30-40% oral exam.
Yeah.
Maybe 30%. I think there are like limits on how much certain assignments can be worth, but yeah, that's something I'm. What do you think professors could do better to? What would it take for you to like speak up in class more?
I mean, I think the most simple thing would be like making it mandatory.
Yeah.
Like, of course, there's like stuff around that. Like some people would be like would pull anxiety, but some people genuinely have like crippling anxiety. But even the people who don't, they would be like, oh, I'm too scared to speak up. So I feel like professors can't mandate it.
Yeah.
But I like in the one-on-one sense, like just you talking with the professor, maybe avoiding like talking in front of the class, like that should be mandatory.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the professor can gain such like a better understanding of what you are understanding in the course.
Yeah.
In just a one-on-one like speaking
they
environment.
can even kind of guide you and help you out, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
there's so much more, what's it called? Like, there's so much more credibility they can give to you if you're like kind of getting close to the answer that you really wouldn't be able to get at in like a multiple choice or even like a short answer sometimes.
Like an assignment.
Oh, benefit of the doubt. Like they can give you like 10% of a grade just because benefit of the doubt, because it sounds like you know what you're talking about, even though it's like tip of your tongue and you would get 0% on the regular exam. So I think it's really an underused solution.
And I think like you said with the cheating, like you wouldn't be able to
there's no way to cheat an oral exam.
No way. No.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's awesome for some people, not
Oh,
awesome for others.
Not good for cheaters.
Yeah.
The only way you can do it is like if you have like a projector like behind them and they just like
behind.
never notice.
Or like
That'd be
a
really funny.
secret AirPod in
Yeah,
somehow.
yeah.
But
But
dude,
I'd assume that they'd be able to like check you or
Yes.
just do a do-over.
that'd be a complicated James Bond level process to cheat on an oral exam.
Yeah.
And I think it would, and then I think that would lead to more engagement in the classrooms.
Yeah, just because people would like want to prep for it too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And feel more confident, like with, okay, I've talked to the professor about this. The professor agrees with what I'm saying. I have a
Yeah.
little bit more confidence now to speak up about something related to that within the classroom setting.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing you said about like the anxiety or like maybe it's hard to like mandate.
Yeah.
Like I definitely agree, but like we shouldn't be making our courses around like the outliers or like the people that
Yeah.
are like too afraid to speak.
Yeah.
It's like if like there are people that we can just like craft or like we can make special exceptions for them.
Yeah.
And like they can
IEPs
do
exist for a reason.
IEPs. You
Yeah.
can do a different assignment, but that doesn't mean that you should restrict the rest of the class to these archaic marking mechanisms.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my view on that.
No, I agree.
But yeah, to take it full circle, I brought up the university video because we're talking about like the narcissism, the little bit of the ego it takes to like put yourself out there and like either make a video or even like talk up in class.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was one of the points I probably spoke like most authentically from the heart in the university video, was about how kids start out curious and then they get kind of beaten down by university or even just like the whole education system at large, just because it is kind of like more like a factory. Like it's not like a garden. Like you personally aren't
Yeah,
nurtured
I like that graphic.
unless you're necessarily like at a private school or like you have a private tutor.
Yeah.
But like even those guys, like they're still trying to like take something out of you and pry it out of you,
Yeah.
rather than to, like just let you do
Yeah.
what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I acknowledge that like it's really hard to do that well. But I think I say in the video, like just because it's hard doesn't mean that like you shouldn't do
Yeah,
it. Like
yeah.
you really gotta, especially now with AI is going to be able to do half of our labor better than us. You really got to start thinking of novel solutions to educate the current population for a society that's way different than it was like 100 years ago. So it's just crazy that we've kind of updated a lot of the other institutions, but education's basically the same as it
Yeah,
was
it
100
stays
years
the same.
ago.
Yeah.
So that's my spiel on education. What else you want to talk about?
I don't know. We could go to the questions.
Yeah, you want to talk about the state of friendship, the state of male loneliness?
No, I thought that was interesting because
Yeah.
obviously resonates with our age demographic and
Right.
yeah.
Do you want to tell me about your thoughts?
Give me something more specific to go
Yeah.
over.
I guess, do you think there's like a generational difference? Like, do you ever talk to your parents about like the kinds of friends they had or like they have currently? Like, do you notice a difference between, say, like older siblings or friends that might be like 5-10 years above
Yeah,
us and
yeah.
then siblings 5-10 years below us? Like what do you think it is about the current age demographic or, Gen Z? Like, I guess I'm saying like 18 to 25 for
Yeah,
us,
yeah.
as opposed to the Zoomers.
Yeah.
So
I don't
what do
know.
you think of the special things that affect us?
I think it's hard to like exactly pinpoint what affects us, but in terms of looking up and seeing like even like some of my older cousins, like male older cousins who maintain friendships even when like they go away for school. I think a lot of the ways that our age demographic and a little bit older maintain friendships is through video games. I think that's like a large part or a large way that we can maintain friendships where maybe like my dad, who is getting close to his 50s now, can't maintain friendships in that way or couldn't maintain friendships in that way.
Right.
So I think video games is a great tool to keep like friends, to keep the friends that you might not situationally be able to keep. otherwise. But yeah, if video games aren't in the picture, like if you're not someone who plays video games a lot, I see it being like very difficult to maintain friendships when like a friend moves away, or unless you're really, really committed to it. Like it takes a lot of work to maintain a friendship, I feel.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but that's like an advantage you name. So it's like unless you have like the communal Discord server,
Yep.
you're kind of screwed. Or
Yeah.
it's just going to take so much more effort.
It's going to take so
maintain.
much work. And video games is really good for that. But obviously, I mean, for me at least, like I've grown out of video games a little bit. I was never big into like League of Legends or like even Call of Duty. Like I wasn't big into those type of games. I played sports games every
Yeah,
once
you
in a
were
while.
FIFA.
Yeah, like so when the sports games start to like not be as fun anymore, then I'm disconnected from some of my friends that I really like value, but like reaching out and connecting with them in a way that isn't associated with video games feels odd to me.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I agree. It's funny because I have a similar experience with like League, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I've got the League server, and like used to just like love the game, and I actually more hated the game and just loved like the lobbies.
Yeah, yeah.
Loved the pre-made 5-mans,
Yeah.
and like that was probably the best part. But then, yeah, as soon as like we all started to grow up and like get full-time jobs or just like have more things occupying us, and then we moved to like more, I don't know, single-player games or other games, then yeah, like it can be kind of awkward to like reach out or like Discord message or you know DM anyone for like something unrelated to League.
Yeah.
And even if you did relate, like say like come play League,
Yeah.
they'd be like, oh, I don't want to play League anymore.
No, it's
or
like,
like
I'll
I'm
play
past
League
that. I
when I'm-
uninstalled it. It's
Yeah.
like old, and it's just it changes so much that like the amount. It's not the learning curve, but like it's kind of a learning curve. Like the amount of effort you have to put into League, like it's not like chess, right? Like chess is never going to change,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
League is changing so
Oh
much
yeah,
that
updates and
the champions we knew like 2 years ago were basically like unplayable or
Yeah,
completely
yeah,
different.
yeah.
So, but yeah.
yeah.
You know what third places are?
Third places,
Are you familiar with that term?
only in like competition sense.
Oh, okay, that's funny. I think that's kind of, I think that's probably the biggest aspect I would have to point for our generation, because so third place is a place that's not work or home. So it's just like some other place that you can go to together. So
Yeah.
it's basically like church, YMCA, like sports leagues, like bowling alley, bar,
Yeah.
coffee shop, like
Yeah.
things like that, or a library, right? But like just increasingly, our third places are no longer those places. It's more just the Discord server or
Yeah.
online or
Yeah.
like Twitter or Snapchat or anything. And because of like the market incentives that have gone to those kind of online communities, like a lot of those real life third places have just kind of suffered. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It's either like sometimes it's just like lack of government investment, sometimes it's lack of charitable donations, and also it's just like lack of like consumers, right? As people just find more things to do inside. But I feel like we're basically paying the price for that now through our polarization and our like loneliness, or our suicide and like mental health epidemic. Is just we get increasingly segregated and isolated in these communities, and then you kind of like the muscles that it takes to like socialize or engage in the real world,
Yeah.
to like make plans,
Yeah.
right? Like, and like those things are like super hard,
Yeah.
obviously at
Yeah.
our age, but like they're like muscles. Like you have to practice it. You have to know the things you have to say to like get your friends out, or you have to be familiar with their schedule or like what they like to do. But if you don't do that for like 3 years, it gets really scary or like impossible to like even start up again. So yeah, that's something I find sad. The death of third places.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I think, like you said, the third place has become like you could use video games as the third place, like that. And it's, yeah, I think you put it perfectly, just eliminating, like even like when we went to the YMCA and played volleyball,
Yeah, like those were pretty fun.
those were great times. Like if we made that like a weekly thing,
Yeah, we probably would all do it.
we'd all do it and we'd keep more in touch because of it.
Yeah.
But and I think like obviously
And like you
COVID
see that, like our YMCA like almost closed because
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the like lack of
Yeah,
memberships.
yeah.
And yeah, like, but like we also had to pay for that privilege, which is fine because
Yeah.
like maybe we should, but also, you know, that's part of the reason why some people like stop going because
Yeah.
gaming is so cheap compared to like all these real world alternatives,
Yeah,
right? Like drinks, bars are so expensive. Even like getting to these bars is somewhat expensive. You have to like Uber back home or whatever. And then you know, like bowling alleys is expensive. So it's also kind of a market thing too, just because
There's a monetary incentive to stay inside.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like you work 8 to 12 hours and
Yeah.
then you're tired and then
Yes.
like you stay inside and you play your $20 game, but you spend 1,000 hours into it. Like that's
Yeah.
great monetary value.
Yeah.
I'm like semi proud of my like I think I have like 1,000 hours in like Hades.
Yeah.
I love Hades
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was like a $30 game. So like that was very cost efficient for me.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm sure that I lost out on some social opportunities or like other kinds of skills I could have developed
Yeah.
for it. But it's like you said, it's just like a tool, right? So it's not like the video games are evil or whatever. It's just you have to be conscious of like the time you spend with them,
Yeah.
like what they're doing for you, what they're not doing for you,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, everything in moderation works for that. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter I think anything can be a tool. It's how much you use it, like that can then start to like negatively impact you. But I think it's a good tool, but I don't think that, and this would be up to every individual person to make this decision, and like it would be up to that individual person to like monitor how much time they're spending on like a video game or staying inside, and like consciously making the effort, like, okay, I should go out and I should spend time with like a buddy, or like I should, but like you said, it's those muscles, and we don't want to work those muscles because it's uncomfortable to work them.
Well, actually, so here's an interesting difference we might have, is that just from the sound of that, you talked about like decision or like individual responsibility, and I'm kind of on that side, but I'm also kind of on the side that I don't know if you can actually expect individuals to make like the conscious decision to like break away from these kinds of like negative habits. I do actually think that there's a certain role for like government to play to regulate and basically fine some of like the big tech corporations that have basically hacked our brains. Like for example, I think the phone ban, I think in Australia is something really good to see. And like we got like the fake phone ban in like Ontario, but it's like they don't really enforce it that well from what I've heard.
Explain the Australian phone ban, because I'm not aware.
So basically, they just passed it maybe a week ago, but I don't think it's going to be enforceable for another couple months. They basically have to develop like biometrics or like third-party like verification to like make sure that like you're over the age of 16, and they're basically going to like ban certain like social media apps, Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok or whatever, for children under 16. And then once you're 16, I think that you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's something I'm pretty excited about seeing other countries adopt too.
No, that sounds good. On like, I would have to think deeper about it, but like just on the surface, that seems like a good plan.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I got all that right. Like the main thing is the verification, like how you do the ID, or like, or you could go even broader and do like the phones ban.
Yeah.
But I think that's just like a good example of like governments looking at the stats and like how it affects their population, and they're like, okay, like we got to step in. Like, it's not like everyone is going to make the collective decision, just put that in their phone, because Okay, here's a really interesting question. So how much would you pay for for okay, how much would I have to pay you to not use TikTok like every month?
Nothing. I don't use
Yeah,
it.
okay.
I don't have
What do you use the most?
Instagram is the one that gets
Okay,
me.
how much would I have to pay you to not use Instagram at all per month?
I mean, like the the monetary value I'm trying to make up in my head is like how much would I like not mind? Like
Yeah.
$5 would be nice.
Really, that's it?
Yeah. Like cuz I'm not that reliant on it. The only time that I would like in my mind need to go on it is when I would need to post something
Okay.
for like
Right.
my channel or whatever. But I don't need to go on it. I have other ways of reaching people.
Okay. I think I read a study that says like the average answer to that question is about like $50 or something,
Wow,
which I don't know how accurate it is. But the more interesting is the follow-up question, which is how much would I'm messing this up. The other question is how much would you be willing to pay to take you and all of your friends off social media, like per month?
Me and all of my friends. I don't know if I'd be interested in doing it.
Wait, really? Like you wouldn't pay to like take you and your friends off social media?
Like
Or like let's limit it to like TikTok or something. Like okay, I think that's the worst social media, I guess.
yeah,
Like,
probably. Like I would be paying to get them off of it, and what would be the gain for me that like maybe I'd get more time with them?
yeah, basically. Well, it's you and everyone else that like you care about.
Yeah.
And then people are willing to pay for that. Like that's the
Okay.
spirit of the question.
Okay.
Because I probably phrased it poorly, but it's like the network effect, right? Like it sucks for like one child to like not have a phone because then they're missing out
Yeah.
because everyone else has a phone. But if everyone does it at the same time, then it's like a lot better because no one's missing out and they just get to, it's a collective decision, right? So I just think it's interesting that people would actually, in the study, they'd be willing to pay like some company or like some whatever to take them and everyone else's like phones or social media away. And they'd pay like $50 a month. They do the $50 a month like real life subscription, and then they get to go like live real life, and then they get to talk to their friends like face to face instead of having to get like interrupted by their friend checking their phone in front of them.
I don't know if I would go as far as to pay for that. Maybe it's because I'm a broke college or university student, but I don't know if I'd pay for it. Even if like it ensured, like, I don't know. I just don't think, even if I'm paying them to get off social media.
Well, that just means your friendships don't mean that much to you, or like the social, or it just means social media doesn't have that negative impact on your life, which is probably good if your circles are relatively intact despite the social media.
Yeah, and I think my circles aren't that big. Like my circles are kind of just like my family, and then my, like, obviously my girlfriend. And I think maybe if you asked that question when I was in high school, it'd be a different answer.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you in high school then, or do you think
I think I'd actually get value from that real life membership, because like it would mean that, yeah, it would create more time, and I think maybe,
like do you have Spotify or YouTube
yeah.
like premium?
No, I don't have YouTube Premium. Oh, I have Spotify on my family page.
Oh,
though,
okay.
So it's
Do you have any subscriptions you pay for? Or?
I have one subscription, and this is because I'm a nerd when it comes to mixed martial arts. But it's this guy who has a Patreon.
Oh, okay.
His name's Jack Slack, and every week he does a podcast talking about martial arts, and sometimes he releases articles. That's the only subscription I actually pay for.
So just imagine like you're paying like the Patreon sub
Yeah.
to like your friends, and then they'll just like talk to you a little bit more. Like that's basically the spirit of the
That
question.
seems desperate.
Well, no, it's not desperate. It's not desperate because it's not like you're paying for the friends.
Yeah.
It's just you're paying for some of your attention back.
Yeah.
Because like even the best of us that are like the most conscious, or like, you know, whatever, like they've read the most self-help books, or like they've got a good relationship with their phone, and they've got like the screen time or whatever.
Yeah.
Like there are people like that, and they can handle it and have a more healthy relationship. But obviously we know plenty of people that don't have the most healthy relationship. So it's just about placing a price on that kind of negative externality.
I think even the type of friends that you do have, kind of like you said, would impact how much you pay for that.
Yeah,
because,
that's true.
Like when I think of someone who I'm not as close with, but was more close with in high school, like Max,
Yeah.
he's pretty like strict.
Yeah, he's got a good relationship with his phone, right? So you wouldn't have to pay the Max subscription.
No, but you might have to pay like one of my other buddies, Nick. You might have to pay the Nick subscription, but I don't know. Like even with you, I don't think. Like, would you say you have an unhealthy relationship with your phone?
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
Like I think I have the self-awareness to say I do as well. Like because, I mean, of course, it depends on what you define as unhealthy. Like, for me, if I'm losing,
I think
like,
people know it in their hearts. I think when they say they have a healthy, they either know they're lying to themselves, or they are like really strict and then they're telling the truth. But you can usually tell.
for me, like wasting the last 4 hours of my day, like from 11 o'clock to like 2 a.m. or even 3 a.m. scrolling Instagram Reels, I would say that would be unhealthy. Even if that's like a thing that happens once a week.
Yeah.
I would call that unhealthy. So I would say like Max would probably be one of those people who doesn't have things like that where you wouldn't have to pay the Max subscription. But I think everyone else has that part of it. But how much does it affect the friendship?
It definitely depends on the friendship. Like I genuinely think it does. Like I don't think it's just about like the friendship, like your relationship with them. I think it's also about their kind of life as a person, right? Like it both makes you and everyone else around you better. Just because instead of talking about, I don't know, like the Costco guys next time you see each other, like they might have like read an interesting book. So it's not necessarily just about their relationship with you. It's also about the value or skills or money they might gain through like reclaiming that time, basically. But anyway, yeah, like the spirit of the question can be friendship, but it's mostly just, it's interesting that we have this service that everyone uses and says they love. But when it comes down to it, most people would actually be willing to pay so that the service gets taken away or like limited or so that they don't have to deal with it. But because of the network effect and how it just gets exponentially more useful to have as more people adopt it and more people spend more time online, it seems like an impossible proposition to like stay off your phone for a week, right? Just because think of all the likes or posts you might not be able to post or the relationships you might not be able to have. So that's an interesting thing that we're going to be talking about a lot over the next like 5 years. But it's something interesting that I'm optimistic about, because I think it's one of the few things that the left and right agree upon is like the TikTok ban, for example. Like Republicans, Democrats, liberals, and conservatives, like they all agree. They all hate the phones. The teachers all hate the phones. The parents all hate the phones. Most of the kids are hating the phones now. So I think that's like a good like stepping stone to like regain some of the trust in our institutions back. And it's like, okay, like if we can take on big tech and take back our kids a little bit from the phones, then I think that's a good stepping stone.
No, that's
People
an
can agree on that.
absolute positive. And the fact that both, as someone who's not as like knowledgeable or even into politics as like you would be, that the fact that both parties agree on that gives me hope that it could move forward.
Like it'll probably get done. Yeah. It's not something they're going to spend years fighting about.
Do your feet not fall asleep in this position?
No, my blood's flowing. You can shift a bit.
Yeah, my at first it was my left foot that fell asleep, but then I shifted and now it's my right foot that is just completely numb.
No, that's fine. Well, you should try to shake it out a bit because it's a little hard to climb with your numb feet.
Descend. Yeah, I know, I'm trying. How are you feeling about the the content that we've gotten so far?
I think it feels pretty good.
Yeah.
I think I'm mostly concerned about the editing.
Yes.
Just like I'm kind of curious how much, what are they called, like artifacts, or just like I'm curious how much background noise there is.
Yeah.
There is noise canceling on these, but I plan to do most of it in post.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, it's just easier. It's cleaner. Yeah, I like it. I can tell you about a couple like more ideas I have. Like, I'll tell you a little bit about my like anti-centrist. Oh, it's not that, because I'm kind of like a centrist, but there's a lot of centrists that I kind of hate because I think they're fake centrists, because they just want the label, like the aesthetic of like I'm rational or like logical, facts over feelings, right? Like Ben, even though like Ben obviously doesn't say he's a centrist, but there are people like that. A couple examples, like Lex Friedman, I think, is one of them. Have you ever seen the trigonometry guys, like Constantine, Tim Pool, if you've ever heard of him? There's a couple more, but those are just the examples off the top of my head. But they're all, those ones I guess are basically like shadow conservatives, where they'll like interview people and they'll say they'll have like liberal beliefs, and they do have some, but when it comes down to like actual like policy or like Trump or anything, like they'll just defend him on like every single word.
Yeah.
Or
do you feel that way about Lex specifically?
Lex is a little bit more complicated. Lex, I think, is more of just a softball interviewer. Because, well, did you watch the Lex interview with Trump, or did you?
I didn't watch that. But
Tell me about some of the interviews you've seen with Lex.
I've seen, most of the ones that I've seen with Lex are about combat sports.
Right.
So it's like him interviewing a fighter, interviewing some jiu-jitsu guys. But I feel like when interviewing a figure like Trump, I feel like so many rules go into it.
Yeah, like obviously you pre-screen like a lot of questions and you can't ask, but in those cases I would say like if you're not allowed to ask him anything, and it's not just about the asking, because he actually did ask him like some like difficult questions, but like Trump just basically like skated past them, and I think that any like interviewer like worth his salt should basically be like pressing on those questions. Like if you ask Trump, people have concerns about the 2020 election and like you saying it's stolen, and he goes like, oh, I don't think about the past.
Yeah.
I don't think you can say you're like an interviewer, and then like not push him on that.
Yeah.
Like there are just certain questions that are important enough that like you just got to do the follow up. You got to be like, sorry, I'm not going to let you get away with that. And if he's like, sorry, I'm not going to respond, it's like, okay, then we can cut the interview here and whatever. But I know what he doesn't. I just think it's for like the money and clicks or whatever, and like the prestige you get from interviewing like a president and like the whole Joe Rogan sphere and whatever. But that's just an example of like if I was ever in that opportunity, that's a bad analogy because I don't know what I'd do. Maybe I would go the Lex route, but I guess I'd hope that.
It's tough
because I wouldn't.
Think about the position that Lex is in right now, and I feel like a lot of people would be envious of the position that he's in right now.
They would, but could you not come up with the counterfactual that like Lex can do a bunch of other interviews with like other people, or even do the interview with Trump, but then try to say like, hey, like I am gonna like ask you, like I know you have to be, he's like afraid of like backlash or whatever, but like you can't let your audience or like backlash like dictate what you're gonna do as a person, because then you just don't have principles. And like from what I see, like I don't think Lex really has principles. I think he's mostly just a sounding board for whoever he is, which is good. Like that's what most interviewers are. They're good like sounding boards. That's what Joe Rogan is ultimately. Like he's a very good sounding board, and he's got some of his
own ideas.
And he's got some of his own ideas, and some of them are good. But a lot of the time he just has some insane guest on, and they just say whatever they want, and then he just agrees, which is fine, whatever. Because like, yeah, you don't know that much. You don't have to push back. But it's also the point of like platform responsibility. It's right. Like like if you don't know enough to push back on certain claims, then maybe you shouldn't do the interview, and you should have like another guest on, or you should have like someone to help you do the interview. Like you can do the moderate and like have a climate scientist on, or like I don't know, like Dr. Fauci on or something. It's just about the accountability for bad faith actors, and those like the centrists that don't push on the accountability. I think they're basically part of the problem. So I basically want to be like the actual centrist
Yeah.
that leans a little left,
Yeah.
but it will actually like push on the hard questions, because it's not like they're just hard questions to answer on the right. Like obviously there are hard questions to answer on the left, like Democrats or liberals. Like there's plenty of corruption, and there's plenty of waste, and there's plenty of, I don't know, bad positions, and like there's plenty of bigotry or racism on the left too, and there's lots of good questions to ask and be had there. And it doesn't have to be like gotcha. It doesn't have to be like combative questions. You can just kind of raise it in a non-combative way. There are good ways to do these kinds of things. But like as far as I see, I don't see enough people like that on the internet. Partly because of the algorithm, and partly because the people that would be like that are well adjusted and they just like live their regular lives, right? Yeah. It's like just think of like all these professors, like they're just kind of like in their offices, like teaching classes, like they're not interested in like going on these podcasts and doing things, and you know, like more power to them. I think a lot of it. But then also they can't complain that people think a different way than they do, because they hear it from this different place, and maybe there's a certain section that are like too high and mighty. It's like the elites, right? Like the elites like don't even think that the Joe Rogans are like worth talking to. So then, but then they get upset when people listen to Joe Rogan, right? So that's my problem.
I think the people like that would take a stand wouldn't get the opportunities that a Joe Rogan or a Lex Friedman get because of
that's true too. Like there's a reason that there was no like second debate, right? Like because those people like the people that would be able to get pushed on accountability would say no, but then the answer that I would get to that is just shame them for it. Like do the thing like I did, like call them spineless cowards, because like they kind of are. Like if you can only go into debate with like Lex Friedman as the moderator, or like some centrist moderator that's just gonna like, and also like some of the debates I just don't think are long enough. Like they're like 30 minutes or an hour, but they have like 8 different topics, and they spend like 1 to 2 minutes on like, or 3 to 5 minutes on every topic.
It's not in depth.
It's not enough, right? No. Like you get like one pushback, and then the moderator's like, next topic, and it's like, what the fuck? Like you didn't. No one answered the other person's question, or you just like let them get by on it, right? So it's either you need to have both a decent moderator that's willing to push. You need to have enough time to allow for pushback, and you also need just like like less topics. You need to like focus on like 1 or 2 things, and then actually
cover those in depth.
Actually cover those and do them justice.
Yeah.
But then I agree. Like it's harder to make that content go viral.
Exactly. Like it wouldn't, and the length constraints too. Like how long. Like you're saying, make it longer, and obviously that would provide more like the in-depth that you're talking about, but people wouldn't watch it as much if it was longer. Like I mean, maybe.
Well, it's a balance to be struck, because the interesting that's fine. Well, like a lot of the Joe Rogan podcasts are like 2 to 3 hours, right? So there's an appetite for this thing. Yeah. I think the time constraints are actually less of a concern now than they used to be. The biggest time constraints are the ones like on TV, right? Just because it costs so much to run. So I'm not saying TV should do 3-hour interviews. Yeah. I understand why they do their 5-minute, 10-minute garbage clips, whatever. Like, I have my problems with mainstream media, but I don't think it should be entirely abolished. I just think that creative creators need to think about ways to make that kind of interesting, informative, engaging content, and make it an appropriate length, and then also make it interesting enough and palatable to the masses, basically.
It's a tall task.
That's an interesting market that I think the liberals or Democrats are going to have to like tap into if they want to if they want to win elections or like make progress. I basically agree.
Yeah.
I've read a decent amount of those articles. Obviously, like there's more that goes into it,
Yeah.
but like this was my whole verse video. Like I looked at the stats of like the top Spotify, top YouTube, top what else was it? Or like just like top subscribers on YouTube and like watch time, and it's all just like conservative dominated. It's Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, Dan Bongino, and then it's like Hassan.
Yeah, yeah.
And like Hassan is like not it.
No, no.
And like Pod Save America, I'm more favorable with those guys. But it's like 1-8 or like 1-7 like ratio, and it's just yeah, like if you're fighting in that kind of environment and if that's where the young people are going to, and if that's the ratio, then like yeah, obviously you're gonna lose the information more. So I think that ratio needs to be both evened out, but I also think that people need to be able to go on those kinds of podcasts and be a little combative and fight a little bit.
I think the people who are in the like position of power in that, like the guests, would stray away. Like they'd focus on going on the type of podcast where they know they're not going to get a combative response, and like you said, spineless cowards, but they're gonna like that's for them, that's like their smart move.
Yeah.
For their, and especially if they're running for an election, like why would they?
Yeah. Like I'm not just saying about like the presidential candidates.
Yeah.
I understand they have like many more restrictions and it's really hard to get them to do certain things.
Yeah.
I guess I'm talking more about like the punditry class, like you know like the YouTubers or like the Daily Wire guys, Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk or whatever. Like yeah, like there needs to be more communication between those guys, and then people need to see it and then have a clearer idea of like what both sides actually stand for and believe in, and then they can decide.
Yep.
Whereas what I see now is that like I don't think that the people that watch the Tucker Carlson podcast actually have a clear idea of like what a trans person is or like what a liberal believes or like why someone would vote for Harris. Like I don't think they just have a caricature.
one way.
Yeah, it's all just like a caricature.
Yeah.
And I would argue that the left podcasts do it a little bit better, but I mean like they're guilty of caricaturing the other side too. So I think that if the more those kinds of people interact and the more time they have to hash out their interactions, then I think the picture just gets clearer instead of distorted.
You could come back to individual responsibility there, where if you're a person who wants to be informed, and of course you can be tricked like by watching like a Ben Shapiro or a Jordan Peterson, like and only watching him. But if you're someone who like is aware enough to go, hey, I should see what the other side is doing and like listen to what they have to say. Like for example, someone like me who hasn't like virtually, and I think it's sad because it impacts our world so much, but I have virtually like no interest in like knowing about political candidates like in America and Canada. Like it's just like it feels too daunting for me to like understand everything. So I commend the people who do like really understand it. But for me, like I watched like a Ben Shapiro video pops up on my YouTube feed. I watch it. I see what he has to say about a certain thing, and then I'm like, oh, I wonder what Hassan. Like I've watched some Hassan videos. I wonder what Hassan has to say, and I've seen some videos of like Destiny. I wonder what Destiny has to say. So that's me going out of my way and like seeking out different perspectives, but to expect other people to do that, I think is difficult. Like I don't think
like that's where I go. Like I don't go on the individual responsibility. I don't think you can just expect people to go out of their way to become informed citizens.
You can't. And I think
it's
that's
like the network effect or the environment effect. I think you have to make the environment as as neutral or like as, well, it's not neutral. You just have to make it easier for people to access the information about the types of beliefs you have, and you have to. It's partly the party problems too, right? Because like some of the government or campaign websites are just, not that attractive to look at, or like they don't communicate their message well, right? So I would place most of the responsibility on like the campaigns. I think it's mostly just a communication problem. I don't think it's that the audience is too stupid or too racist to like listen to what I have to say. I think it's just like, just say your stuff better, or like know your audience, right? Like, I don't think it's the audience's fault for not laughing at a comedian's jokes. I think you just got to know your material and you got to know your audience. You got to be able to tell a better story. So that's where I talk about like I don't like the individual responsibility aspect for those kinds of specific decisions when there's such a horrid, poisoned environment for making those decisions. I think it's really on both the people that make the environment and the people that create the content for that environment to kind of advocate for change and be the change they want to see in the world. Yeah, that's my favorite quote, by the way. It's basically what I'm finally trying to do, I guess, is I'm tired of being a viewer and a lurker.
Yeah.
I want to be a talker.
Take some
I want to
action.
join the talking class, and I want to talk to other people.
Yeah, no.
I
I
want to be your lord.
I think that's a more interesting way to go about it.
Yeah.
I wonder if your video doesn't, or your camera doesn't have like a time limit, does it?
It shouldn't. I think it's got a lot of storage. It might be frozen, but even if it is frozen, the mics are still going, so that'll be fine.
You could input that
Yeah.
underneath some like pictures or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pictures. What else was I gonna say? One more. Oh, about the. What were we just talking about? Oh, creator class. Oh, it's the climb. Oh, so yeah. So it's the one. That's the other good analogy for the climbing thing that I was gonna put in my intro video, is that like I think it's really stupid to try and plan out everything about like a tree climb from like the bottom. I think you just have to like start climbing.
Yeah, climb it.
And then you start seeing like different branches or whatever that you can grip onto, and like it's not to say that you trial and error it, because like you need to make sure certain branches are sturdy so you don't fall, but like just like certain tree climbs or rock climbs you cannot plan out from the bottom just because you can't see everything. And then I wanted to make the analogy to like the YouTube or like podcast sphere. Like I wanted to basically just like try doing it, and then as I would
You figure it out as you go.
figure it out
You
as
can't
go,
start out
rather
at
than
the
trying to
top.
plan it
You
out
can't
from the
start
beginning.
out at the top of the tree either. Like you gotta work your. You could use that analogy in terms of like.
Yeah, it's like a slow climb, and you'll see more branches, and then the end part is and then like it'll be like hard, and like you'll get bruised, and like you might fall, but like the view at the end is all worth it.
Yeah, there it is.
And it's like cheesy, but it's like I don't know.
No,
I think
it
it's
works.
true, and that's why I think it's a good podcast.
No, I like it. I immediately, as you pitched the idea to me, I thought it was like fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think maybe people will look at it, like there might be the odd person who sees it and it's like, what is happening here? Like, why are they intrigued? Like, just an immediate questioning.
It's a little bit of absurdity right
Yeah.
away that I hope draws the eye in.
I think it will draw the eye in. And then what is going to keep them is like obviously the content of what you're discussing. Like that will keep them.
That's the hope. I think the kinds of things that will keep people. It's basically like what I want to try to do in all my videos is people love pointing out problems. So that's what I'll do with my videos is I'll point out problems like I did with the university video or whatever. But then at the end, like once they're committed there, like I'm always gonna try and advocate for the solutions or like the things I'm optimistic about seeing. Like the university thing, like I said, I'm optimistic about the Carnegie Foundation is changing the Carnegie unit, which is like the hours credit, and they're trying to broaden report cards to just like a broader set of skills, like collaboration and creativity and resilience and like civic engagement, there's like a whole list of like 20 or like 30 of them, but it's just about like capturing like the whole of like the human experience rather than just like the student or like the STEM marks. The other point I make in the video, or yeah, like the worst thing is that how school makes kids hate group work. And I think the goal of school, at the very minimum, should be you have to get kids to like one another.
Encourage it, yeah.
You have to. University kids should be more accustomed and inclined to, or at least be willing to see the necessary evil that is group work, and they shouldn't come out hating it every time because people suffer from it.
And I think there's one teacher, not to interrupt, but there's one of my teachers who does a really good job of this. His course is entirely built around like feedback that you're gonna get. So you write a piece, you write a non-fictional story.
Right.
Like this is Tony's class.
Right.
Yeah. So you write a piece and then you hand it out to your peers, and the peers have a week, and then you come back, and the whole class is just you sitting in a group of 6 or 7 people, like giving feedback on like literary techniques that you're like ways you can improve. I think like that, even something simple like that is a way better way of teaching a class and like getting your students involved and enjoying group work than like the traditional classroom. Right?
Yeah.
Like a lecture
Yeah, for
and
sure.
an assignment and then, yeah.
The aspect where you're actually like working together to improve each other's grades.
Absolutely.
Rather than just like kind of in for yourself, or you're just like raw dogging it. Just like do your own part and like hope.
Yeah, and hope that everyone else does good.
Yeah. Or you end up just like co-opting the whole project and like doing it on yourself because like you don't like the other people's work or you don't trust them. So
I feel like that's a lot of the online classes, because my girlfriend's in a lot of online classes where it's like, okay, the final thing is a group presentation, and then you're like trying to email these people you've never met before, and you're like, okay, you do this part, but then they're not doing that part until the day before, and you're just like, oh, I don't trust them, I'm gonna do it. Yeah.
yeah, it's bad. It's partly the professor's fault too for even expecting that of their students, or not giving them like the guidelines, or if they don't give them like the emails, or if they kind of like set out clear expectations and then also follow up. Like I can see why they want maybe students to, maybe it's like trial by fire, like they just want to throw them in there and get them to try to do all the delegation and separation of work themselves.
Individual responsibility.
Yeah. But also, like, we pay them so much for a reason. Like, it doesn't take that much work to, like, kind of organize some group work.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, wow.
Hopefully that doesn't happen to us.
That'll be a cool shot when it happens to us one of these times.
What are you thinking?
I'm getting a little cold. I think it's a good spot to end it.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to join you here.
Yeah, thanks for filming with me.
Oh, of course. It's my pleasure. I've been waiting for someone to start a YouTube channel that I could help.
Thanks for sticking around and watching this far. I really enjoyed making this episode with my friend, and I really enjoyed learning how to use some of the equipment, and I was pretty pleased with just how well it worked in the cold. Even though the phone froze, I was pretty pleased with like the range on the mics and that you could hear us up there. I apologize. I hope you'll forgive me for the learning curve and my sloppy edits. I'll probably get better over time. I'm planning to do more episodes over the holidays with a couple of friends, and I'm kind of excited to be able to pick a different tree every time I go out. It's nice to have some motivation to go outside for a little bit of a hike and work on a passion project. Give me your thoughts and comments. I really appreciated some of the ones in the last video. So stay tuned, and if you're lucky, you might get to see me fall down a tree.